Danny. This is Jagrav from India. Well,
Jagar, what's going on?
yeah, everything's good. Well, I'm an high school student, and I just wanted to ask you a question. That is, you just asked Miguel
Okay.
that what was the last thing that he built, which he was most proud of. Well, what are you proud of the most? That you built. I mean, I'm just curious.
So application wise, that's the problem. So like some people have found like my old like GitHub and everything I work on is under NDA. So only place I can post any projects I'm working on is on this private GitLab. So people think like, oh, he isn't coding anything, he just talks. No, I'm coding a lot of stuff. I just can't show it. But one new website that I'm working on right now, I'm actually making a website. Since I'm learning React, I was like, I want to challenge myself and make a website in React. And I need a website for like all my speaking and like like events that I've done and some clips. So I'm going to make something like that in React. One project I can talk about one without giving details. I worked on one project. The company I work for is we're a new company, but we're $1 billion company. It's called Front Door, but we did a project for a company where they had like over 10 million users, and we helped create the sales funnel. Most of my work is around e-commerce. So from the time a customer ends up on the website to the point of purchase, we run all that. And so we're no, like for the company we work for, which is called American Home Shield, and Front Door is the parent company of that. The from the point of purchase to the time they get on the website, we run that whole show. So we're considered like one of the important people because that's where the money flow is coming from, right? And we did $1 billion in revenue in our first year, and we're expected to do 5 billion more by 2025. So like we're growing, which is why obviously like hush hush on everything. We can't really describe some of the stuff we're doing, but it's also because we deal with so much user data that sometimes if I give a little clue, it could go somewhere else and maybe expose something. But I'm very proud of that fact that we were able to help another company that's under us because we own several companies with 10 million users. I effectively made changes that affected the way people interact with the website 10 million times a day. Like that, you know what's weird is like, so I literally not too long ago, I made a button that obviously does a lot of backend stuff, but when you hit this, when you hover over the button, it does a hover effect. And like I saw it in production, and I was like, just moving my mouse over and over again. I'm like, I made that. Like you'll find yourself sometimes doing that, and it feels great. Like, oh, that button looks great now. Like that's all me. So I'm always proud of you. Again, it's back to those small wins. You'll do something small and feel so great about it.
That's great. And what was the one thing that mostly motivated you into not stopping to write code? Because I face this a lot. That is, while writing some kind of or working on some kind of project, I just get bored or something. So how to deal with that?
Well, number one, like choose a project you're very excited about. That helps because sometimes a lot of people you follow these like YouTube tutorials with like a to-do list. Like how many to-do lists are you gonna make in your life, right? I know it's good because it's a CRUD operation, create, read, yada yada yada. But it's like that's not fun. Like, what are you gonna do with that? No one makes a to-do list and then uses that to-do list unless they make it specifically in a different way besides that YouTube tutorial, right? So of course that gets boring. But now if you're making something you're excited about, that helps. But here's the other thing. Like, what if I told you right now that if you come to my house, I'm gonna give you $1 million in cash? Would you do it? Would you come to my house?
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah,
If
of
if
course.
if I told you I want you to meet me tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, would you meet me at tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'll give you $1 million? Would you do it?
Yeah,
You would, right?
yeah, of
Everybody.
course.
So we now know that you don't procrastinate. We now know that procrastination doesn't exist in your world. It's just the fact that it's not important to you because that $1 million is important. You'll move mountains to get it, right? But you're telling me that this project it's not important. So you'll push it off, you'll procrastinate, or you'll let it drop. Once you prioritize something, that is something that you'll achieve. And if by this, I'm telling you, by coming to my house, by making these steps, you're going to get $1 million. Well, it's the same thing here. If you make this project and you make the one after that and the subsequent one after that and the subsequent after that, that's your footsteps. Well, guess what? That's going to lead to $100,000 a year salary that you're going to make over 10 years, and now you got your $1 million.
Okay, great. Uh,
I hope that
Thanks
helps.
for answering my questions. It was, yeah, great. What are you drinking?
Oh, right now it's just a barley tea.
Okay, okay, great. Thanks. Thank you so much.
No
And
problem.
by the way, yeah, I also had another question. Sorry for asking so many questions. Um, like, do you have anything to suggest to high school students like us? I mean, a lot of high school students are actually attending this session today. So, like, my question was, how do you feel is our internships important? You think internships are important at all or not?
So this answer has gotten me in trouble in the past, but I will say it again that I don't like internships. I think it is a way for most companies to try and get free labor, and I don't like that. I think if you are providing value to a company, they should in turn provide value to you in the form of a paycheck. Some people may say, well, it's the whole experience and getting your foot in the company. I've known many people that have done internships and still can't get jobs afterwards. No one really, it's good. Like, here's one thing that's a fact: you can only learn so much to be job ready, but the real learning genuinely begins after you land that first job in tech. You are going to learn so much. And the problem is, there are no tutorials on stuff like pipelines and Jenkins builds and stuff like that. Like, that is stuff you're only going to learn once you get those tools available to you. And there's no real free versions of that stuff. I remember you don't know what you don't know, and you won't know it until you realize you don't know it. So until you actually get thrown into that situation, there's no way to prepare for it. So, but the problem is with a lot of these internships, they don't even expose you to this stuff. They're keeping you on super simple, basic tasks like updating a spreadsheet or things like that, just to get you that time in that company for whatever that you're doing. Like, for example, not our company, but a company next to us that we're partnered with called Service Master. They do internships. When I spoke to a lot of the interns, they were literally doing Word documentation, Excel sheets, things like that. They never touched the code. So what value did that really bring to you to learn besides, like, oh, I got to walk into an office? So, and that's their risk too, is like, if we get an intern and we expose them to the code and they break stuff, like, did this help us? It didn't. So, and especially when they know, like, there's no way that we're going to retain this intern, they're going to go back to school. So how much are we really going to invest in this person? They do it because they want you to come back and things like that. But at the end of the day, an internship, it's good to get the experience, I suppose, but I would only do it as a last ditch resort. But here's the other thing though, like, being in high school, that can't hurt. Like, what are your options? Have a summer internship or play Xbox all the time? Like, go do the internship, sure. But if you're an adult outside of the ages of college and high school, I would that would be my absolute last resort. I would not go for that first. I would go for it at the end.
Right.
It depends on the company though, because for Lyft, the internship, you are doing very significant work. It's just like any other employee. It's like a
For high
super
school
high
students?
bar. No, for college students. The Lyft's internship is only for college students. They have an internship and apprenticeship. So internship is for college students, apprenticeship is for people in non-traditional backgrounds, but they require like that you have work experience. So that's not for high school students either. But
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, like, it depends on the company. So you got to do your research if you're like
Yeah.
looking into internships, because a lot of them
That's
are
cool that they
paid
do that.
too. Because even Lyft's internship, I think it pays well. So just like anything, do
Yeah,
your
I think
research.
yeah, I think maybe global corporations or like big companies like that, maybe. But I think for a lot of these
Yeah,
average companies, it hasn't been the common case.
yeah. For Lyft is very structured. Like they have a whole team that like structures the whole internship, and there's like check-ins every week you got to do, and like they're making sure they're trying to prep you for success for the whole way.
Yeah.
Um,
I would just say though, like, especially if you're in high school, like, yeah, if you're getting an internship, do it. But if you're like over 22, 23, 24, 25, I would, if you have the option between an internship and a job, I'd rather take the job.
Right. And I just wanted to ask you guys, uh, like, how many of you actually did internships?
I didn't.
And
Mm.
did you,
I did
Brady?
internships, but not for technical roles.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So,
No.
okay, thanks for answering my
I
question.
took a very low paying job. So
Same.
I my first job as a software developer first was unpaid. I volunteered a lot. At a mission bit and a bunch of organizations teaching other people how to code. Eventually, I got a contract gig, and I paid $25 an hour. So maybe outside of San Francisco, that's a decent wage, but inside of San Francisco,
Yeah,
that's like
the cost of living is crazy.
yeah, because when you do contract too, you gotta figure you're not
Taxes.
getting any benefits. You gotta pay your own health insurance. You gotta pay all kinds of stuff. So it wasn't that much to live on. But yeah, that was my first paid gig was $25 an hour in when was that? 2013. Yeah.
Yeah.
In India, it's way less. So, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
disappointing
Yeah.
for us.
I can
Yeah.
I can imagine. The good thing is remote work is coming a thing now. So
Yeah.
hopefully in the future it becomes easier to just work from any country. They still gotta work on the laws and taxes and stuff though to like
Yeah.
accommodate this new world of like remote work. But yeah. Anybody else want to
I
introduce
see.
themselves?
Yeah, I see someone's got their hand raised.
Oh, how do you raise your hand? Oh, go ahead.
Is that God's
All
power?
right.
Anybody else want to
Well,
introduce themselves? Oh, what was that?
yeah, I was again asking that well, you must have learned a lot of stuff, over these past few years. You mentioned that you were also selling chicken, before. And so my question was, what are the most unique stuff that you have learned over these past few years? Like, for you, if it is unique, then it must be like great for us. What are the most unique and like things that make you proud, that excite you the most, in order to, work more and harder?
A unique thing.
Yeah.
Seasoning food makes people happy. And the reason why I say it like that is, yeah, like having a good meal with some friends is great and it should be a life goal. But also, adding spice to your life will never hurt. So you don't necessarily have to always do the same bland vanilla thing over and over. Get crazy, throw some spice in there, throw some paprika. You got IBS? Cool. Live and learn, right? Like go through these situations and experience life. Because again, I'm telling you, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, life is so incredibly short. When you know what's crazy, I really believe this too, is when you put an expiration date on someone's life, that is the day they find a sense of urgency with it. Why should it take something to that level to finally kick you in the pants to live the life that you've been throwing away? I genuinely believe that your life doesn't really begin until you comprehend and understand how short life really is. I feel like we put off things that we shouldn't put off because tomorrow is always there, because we have this complex where we are bigger than what we are in our minds, and that the inevitable is always unevitable, meaning tomorrow never comes really. Like we know on some degree that one day we're leaving this earth, but do we really think about that? Like, man, 60 years is not that long. I've already crossed half of it. Like, what if I live to 60? What if I live to 70? What if I live to 50? What if I live to 40? Like, are we really taking advantage of this time that we have? Like, think about that for a second, right? Like, you're in high school right now, you're living with your parents, but those of you that have moved out, how many more visits do you have with your parents before it's your time or theirs? Have you made those visits worthwhile? Will you cry when they go, and will you regret the time that you didn't spend with them? What about with your friends? What about with your loved ones? What about with yourself? We're always concerned with others, but what about with ourselves? Are we actually spending time with ourselves and making it count? Do something today or tomorrow, depending on what time zone you're in. Lock yourself in a room, turn off all the lights, put away the electronics for 30 minutes, sit up on your bed and ask yourself the questions that you don't want to answer. Ask yourself the questions and find out what really makes you tick. Because even right now, you're on this path because you went through a boot camp. But was that actually what you really wanted? And if the answer to that is yes, then tap into yourself and ask yourself what you need to get out of this. And once you have that answer, I guarantee you, you're going to do some things that will shock you.
Wow, that
I hope
almost
that helps.
made me cry. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
We got some people with their hands up.